Welcome to the presentation, How to Start Writing a Research or Reporting Paper. To follow along with this presentation, you'll want to turn to page 436, chapter 37, in How to Write Anything. We'll also get into a little tiny bit of chapter 38. Many of the strategies that you used in starting your narrative will still apply to the research paper, and the information that we covered in the presentations during that unit do pertain to this. So if you are struggling to start this research paper, also called the reporting paper, then I recommend going back, looking at those lessons and those presentations to remember a little bit more about some of the brainstorming process. I'm not going to go back and repeat that and give redundant information, but you may want to go back and check that out. As you're going through the brainstorming phase and coming up with lots of ideas, I recommend you make a plan. You want to work with a course schedule, so check and see either on the course schedule or on the paper instructions for my class. You'll see specific milestones and dates you need to have things in by. I try to be very specific with that. Not every instructor will be, but I do that in Writing 1 so you can do that kind of planning and what we might even call micro planning, which is not just planning, well, I need to have this paper done at this certain day, or even, hey, I need to have a rough draft due at this point, but getting the various steps in place. And you can see an example of that in our book in chapter 37. You also want to plan for delays and surprises, and you can see a picture here of one that happened on my street recently. But lots of things are going to happen in your life, and you just need to plan that things are going to surprise you and get in your way as you are trying to work. No reason to whine, but it's also something that we just need to expect and get started early so that we can avoid problems trying to overcome that at the last minute. You also want to make sure that you have a manageable topic. This is a skill that it takes a while to develop, and this is one of the really big things that we're going to do in Writing 1, because I see a lot of students really struggle with this. So learn how to narrow your topic. You need to think about the size of the paper and realize that in 4 or 5 pages you are not going to get into the entire debate of whether we should legalize marijuana or not, to go with one popular topic that we'll expand on later in this presentation. Or, again, driving laws, things like that. They're huge topics. So learn how to break them into little pieces, and find one part of it to really narrow down into, or a couple parts to really, really dig into and develop them. You also want to keep in mind that these papers, we're not expecting you to solve life's mysteries and the problems. Now, as a result of working in this course and learning the critical thinking, you should be able to develop that skill that will help you solve problems. One really great strategy that will help you during this early phase is to determine some research questions. And sometimes I call these working questions, because these are questions that are in progress. They're things that you're still kind of shaping in your head because you're trying to figure out what you're looking for. So here are some questions that will help you determine what you look for as you think about researching. Really, what kind of information and ideas will help me with this topic? Now, that seems like common sense, but again, sometimes we get really intimidated and we kind of get stuck and spin our wheels, and it's good to kind of come back to the basics. We can even go with this question: what about this topic especially interests me? This one is especially helpful when you are assigned a topic, because when you are assigned a topic, sometimes you don't think it's very interesting. Sometimes I give students a list they can choose from of topics, and I always get one who says, well, I'm not interested in any of these. Okay, fair enough. That's true, and that's good feedback for me to know that I need to expand things a little bit. But choose a topic and find something within it that interests you. A lot of times there's something within your major that you can think about, and you can relate a topic to how it gets into your major. That's one strategy that I think is especially helpful here. You can also start building some more specific questions here, and I have some examples here that if you want to slow down and pause, you can look at those on your own. I like to put in either how or why questions. Those lead to more in-depth and even analysis, and that's what we're searching for here in college level writing. And the example in the end, why did, how did, and so on. Asking those questions is really going to help you dig. And of course, you're never alone. We'll talk later about using the library for research. They're a great source. The Writing Lab is a great source. So take advantage of your sources. Once you've got some working questions in place to help focus your research, you want to start in on your background research. Here you need to consider your objectives. What are you trying to do here? Make sure you understand the general basics before you narrow the topic and dig into the good stuff, and then you're going to use tools that help lead you to the really great resource. First of all, you want to think and ask yourself, what do you already know about the topic? What's something that you can ask your own brain and think to yourself, what do I already know about this? And write some basic notes on that. You probably know some basic background information. So for example, some students like to do papers on medical marijuana. That's a popular one. Or driving and texting. That's another popular one. And with both of those, you probably already have some thoughts and some ideas and some knowledge about those. With driving and texting, most of us know people who do that, or we do that ourselves. And what do you know? What have you observed? What's some good background information for that? Then you can ask professors and other experts what they're interested in about it. What do they specifically find that's really fascinating about the topic or important about the topic? Maybe what resources they recommend. Again, right now, we aren't even getting into sources that you will specifically use in your paper, but you're trying to hunt those down. You're trying to find some background information. You're also going to use for that some reference resources. That includes encyclopedias, dictionaries, even Wikipedia, which we'll get into a lot more here later. Some basic background information. They're not going to give us specifics about the topics that we really want to dig into, but they'll help you get a better sense of the history of something, a good definition for something, things like that. Now that you've gotten a sense on how to get started, you can actually go get started. And you can start thinking about what topics might work with you and actually do all of these things. And then, of course, you'll want to look at the next presentation in this series, this unit on research, and use those to help you find some really great sources. Good luck.